knowing your worth in a negotiation useful? Your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And what's the statistic? I think it's 70%, 65 to 75% of women, especially women, they accept the salary that they're offered. And to me, that's literally taking the dollar value of what a hiring committee thinks you're worth, right? So you haven't even sort of started the dialogue of your value. And I have clients, in particular women, who that's caused some issues because the expectation was that they would come back and negotiate. And so now they are markedly lower than some of their peers. And as they both move up in the organization, they've had to actually sort of even them up. And so they're getting these raises they weren't expecting so that they're now on par. There are some companies, especially in Silicon Valley I've worked with, that have complete salary transparency. So they literally say, this is the highest and best. You can see all of the salary bands. We publish them internally. And so there is no room for negotiation. I think that's kind of nice as well, because you know that you weren't leaving any money on the table. But I think it's culturally perhaps a bit of a shame that, especially women, they fear, I think, or they're just not comfortable talking about money. But to do that, you have to know a few things. You have to know the value you bring with your work. You have to know the sort of market value of your role. You need to know a little bit about the revenue and what the company is paying, in certain roles. So you feel comfortable speaking that language with the people who are hiring you.
Yeah. What you talked about initially about knowing your worth, from a dollar or pound perspective, you'd be much more likely to negotiate properly if you knew that. Whereas I think if you've got no experience at all, I think most people, or a lot of people, are too agreeable in that particular scenario, and they just don't want to rock the boat. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think it's also feeling a little bit of just discomfort, right? It's like an icky. It's almost like don't talk politics at the Thanksgiving table, right? Well, the reality is that this is a transaction, and I also suggest to my clients, even on your resume or in an interview, don't talk about things in dollars or pounds. In the sense of, I did a campaign that increased sales by $1 million, because that doesn't have a contextual value to anybody. You could be at a company where $1 million is 1,000% increase, or you could be at a company where that represents a tiny drop in the bucket. I think it's more impactful if you talk about it as a percentage, because now somebody's thinking, oh, if she increased something by 25%, I'm sort of looking at that and thinking, well, maybe in my company, that's 25 million, but they're able to do the math really quickly. So I think it's just as an interview tip, talk about, you can talk about it in the number of pounds or the number of dollars, but also really quickly add the percentage increase or the percentage impact, because that sort of universalizes what your value is to somebody outside of your organization.